Welcome to the channel Get Rich. Today, the company we are going to look into is Ajanta Pharma. It is a mid-cap company belongs to pharmaceutical industry. So, as usual, let's first have a look at pharma sector. The pharmaceutical industry is one of the world's fastest growing industries and amongst the biggest contributors to the world economy. It plays a unique role in improving the lives of patients. Its role has become far more critical amidst the fight against COVID-19 pandemic. So, according to IQVIA Institute paper published in March 2020, so the global invoice spending has steadily increased from 2014 to 2019 with a 5-year CAGR of 4.7% to reach USD 1.2 trillion in 2019. The spending growth is consistent with the increased global use of medicine and is expected to register 3 to 6% CAGR to USD 1.6 trillion by 2024. So if we see the developed markets, it grew at a CAGR of 3.8% to USD 821.6 billion in 2019. This is now expected to grow to USD 985 billion to 1 trillion by 2024 at a CAGR of 2 to 5%. So if we look the different developed markets, for emerging markets and the rest of the world market, so it is going to grow, the developed market is going to grow 2 to 5% from 2020 to 2024. For emerging market is going to grow 5 to 8% from 2020 to 2024, and the rest of the world is going to grow at around 2 to 5%. So as a global market, so it is going to go at around 3 to 6%. So if we especially look in the table right, so it's only the for emerging markets. So if you look at China, it had grown from 2014 to 19 around 6.7%, but from 2020 to 2024 it's going to grow somewhere between 5 to 8%. If you look at Brazil, it was growing at 9.9% CAGR from 2014 to 19, and it is expected to grow 6 to 9% from 2020 to 2024. If you look at India, it has grown 9.5% CAGR between 2014 and 19, and it is going to grow somewhere between 8 to 11% from 2020 to 2024. And then if you look at the Russian Federation, it's also somewhere around 8.4%. It has grown from 2014 to 19, and it is to grow at around 8 to 11% from 2020 to 2024. So if you look at the total for emerging market as a whole, it's, as I said, it's going to grow at 5 to 8%. So we have a very good year ahead for pharmaceutical industries, and especially now a lot of markets are focusing on pharmaceutical industry, and all the stocks from pharma sector, it's already booming like anything. So let's get started. So first, let's have a look at Ajanta Pharma. So Ajanta Pharma is a specialty pharmaceutical formulation company engaged in the development, manufacture and marketing of quality finished dosages. The company has a well diversified and de-risked business model with over 70% of business coming from a wide range of branded generic products in over 30 countries in Asia, including India and Africa. The balance 30% is contributed by generic businesses in USA and anti-malaria institutional businesses in Africa. So it is established in 1973. Ajanta Pharma is mainly into exports as well as domestic formulations. As of financial year 2020, the export to formulation ratio was around 70 to 30. So almost 70% is exports and 30% is domestic formulations. So if you look at the consolidated revenue of operations from financial 2020, they are doing at around 2,588 crores. And the manufacturing facilities, they have 8 manufacturing facilities, and they have 7,000 plus employees, and they are spending 6% R&D spent revenue from operations. So let's get a bit deeper. So where are their revenues coming from? How much percentage is coming from which part of the market? So 30% is contributed by India. So the India business is around 30%. And then if you look USA, it's around 20% from financial 2020, but it has already increased to around 31% in the previous quarter. So let's get to that at later point of time. So if you have a look at Africa, it's 24%, and rest of Asia, it's 26%. This is based on financial year 2020. Then let's have a look at their domestic India business. So the domestic formulation constitute 30% of the total consolidated turnover in financial 2019. This segment has been further segregated into 2 sub-segments like branded formulations and institutional business. Initially, the company was catering to the institutional business. The institutional sub-segment accounts for 8% of domestic formulations and is mainly confined to government and institutional tenders. It is only in the last 10 years that the focus shifted to the branded formulation business, which now accounts for 92% of domestic formulations. So if you have a look at the company different specialty therapies, they are focusing on three specialty therapies like ophthalmology, dermatology, and cardiology, and they are also present in pain management. So together, these therapies constitute 92% of domestic branded formulations. Ajanta invested heavily in the technology and field force, especially in the first 5 years after the change focus. The focus was also to offer novel delivery system. From 17 crore in financial 2005, formulation have grown to 705 crores in financial 2020. Till date, the company has launched 270 plus products, out of which 60% are first time launches. So the current MR strength is 3000 plus. So overall, the domestic branded formulation have grown at 9% CAGR from 2016 to 2020. So they launched total 18 new products in India across 4 specialty therapies. Out of this, 7 were first to market. This includes eye drop Riptac, Ripasudil, so anti-hypertension drug, Azusa, and moisturizer Acura HF. So these launches ensure their continued growth in coming years, apart from their existing products like MetXL, Soft Drops, and others which keep climbing new highs. So then let's have a look at market to Ajanta Pharma comparison. So in March 2017, the market, the pharmaceutical in the Indian pharmaceutical market, so it grown at around 9%, but Ajanta overperformed and it reached 16%. In March 2018, the market was 6%, Ajanta Pharma is also 6%. If you look at March 2020, the market is doing 11%, Ajanta Pharma was doing at around 13%. So recently in the last quarter, September 2020, so the Indian market is around 5% and they underperformed like around 4%, not much, but still they underperformed. And then if you are having a look at each individual segment by segment, so as a pharma market, so it's 5% industry and 4% Ajanta Pharma, and in cardiology the market is doing at 13% and they did around 10%. In ophthalmology the market is also degrow by 1%, they also degrow by 1%, and in dermatology the market grown by 4% and they degrew by 2%, and then in pain management the market grown by 1% and they grow by 8%. So then let's have a look at their ranking in different segments. So in ophthalmology in March 2005 they ranked at around 28, and in last quarter they already reached second ranking. And in dermatology they were at around 98 in March 2005 and they improved to 14 in September 2019 and they go back to 15 in September 2020. In cardiology it was 38, they were 38 in March 2005 and they reached 17 in September 2020. In pain management they are 35, and as a whole if you look at Ajanta Pharma they were around 88th position in March 2005 and currently they reached 29th position. And also if you look at their different revenue segments and their percentages, how it contributes to their revenue, so the cardiology accounts for 38%, ophthalmology accounts for 25%, dermatology accounts for 23%, and the pain management 7%, and others has 7%. Let's have a look at their domestic formulation revenue year over year. So it increased from 538 crores from financial 2016 to almost 770 crores in financial 2020, and it is expected to grow at around 11% CAGR in the coming years. And then if you look at their quarter over quarter performance, so they are doing quite fine. So they grew at around 27% in first quarter financial 2019, and then they went to 7.7%, 4%, 7%, 6%, and in the first quarter they degrew by 15%, and that's because of the lockdown and the current scenario that's going on from India. So they're also facing some headwinds in domestic businesses. And then if you look at the sales quarter over quarter, in quarter of financial 22 when compared with quarter of financial 2021, so it's a degrowth of 1%, and if you look at the half year it's a degrowth of 5%. So this is all about the domestic business, so the business out of India. And then if you look at their export business, so the export formulation constitutes 70% of total revenues. So exports are mainly confined to emerging markets and constitute branded generics. So they also have exports in products in 31 emerging markets with a significant presence in Franco-African countries and Philippines. So Asia accounts for 38% of export formulation, followed by Africa and US with 33% and 29% contribution to exports respectively. The company also participates in anti-malarial tenders in Africa. It operates through 710 plus MRs in these emerging markets. Ajanta Pharma Limited owns a portfolio of more than 1,350 registered brands in these markets, encompassing major therapies such as anti-infectives, anti-malarials, ophthalmic, dermatology, cardiovascular, GI, etc. The company also has a marginal presence in Latin America. it has also forayed into regulated markets such as US, where it has filed 57 ANDAs and received approvals for 38. As said, if you have a look at their export sales contribution, so their US business, they are growing. So in financial 2020, their US business was around 29%, and already they increased to 31% in Q2 financial 2021. So their US business is growing. And then if you have a look at their export formulation as a whole, it increased from 1177 crores in financial 2016 to almost 1790 crores in financial 2020, and it is expected to grow at around 11%. So, and then if you look at their different, how it is performed quarter over quarter in different parts of their export business. So in Asia it degrew by 1% quarter over quarter, and then in Africa branded it went up by 36%, and in USA it also went up by 39%. In Africa institution it went down by 28%. If you look at that, the half yearly comparison between different markets, so in Asia it went up by 11%, in Africa it went up by 26%, in USA it went up by 42%, and in Africa institution it went down by 26%. So this is about their export business. So if you compare year over year, so they did very well. In Asia it improved 27%, Africa branded 14%, USA, look at the growth, they went up by 82% year over year, and their Africa institution it's 25% and others 21%. So if you look at the total exports, they grew by 15%, even though their domestic market was not doing that great, but it is compensated by their export business. So because they are so growing very good in export business, so their total overall growth is pretty good. And another good thing is they are growing, their growth is expected very high in US business. I will come to that in some time. And then let's have a look at US business. So if you have a look at the US business, they filed and of 39 said it's a 37 is final approval and 2 tentative, and their under approval is 19. So they also have a long-term filing target of 10 to 12 per year filings per year, and they also have 33 products on shelf. So their main product launches in H2 financial 2021. They are also steadily gaining market share. So if you look at the US growth, so in financial 2016 they just entered US market, so it was just 14 crores, and it increased to 283 crores in financial 2019, and it's already increased to 515 crores in financial 2020, and it is expected to grow at a CAGR of 17%. So their US business is going to go at around 17% growth. It is expected to grow at around 17%. So overall it was projected to grow at around 9 to 10%, but then the CAGR of US business it's going to go very good, so it's projected to be 17%. And then if you have a look at their Asia business, they have a product registration of 330 plus, and they have like many therapeutic segments, so like cardiology, pain management, antibiotics, gastroenterology, antihistamines, respiratory, neurology. So if you look at the Asia business, it was growing at around 9.5% CAGR, and it is expected to grow at around 10%. So also if you look at quarter over quarter, so they were growing pretty nicely. And then if we have a look at their Africa business, so they have product registration of 1000 plus, and their major therapeutic segments were anti-malaria, antibiotics, gynecology, vitamins, cardiology, ophthalmology, and pain management. They were degrowing at around 3.4% from financial 2016 to financial 2019, and it is projected to grow at around 4.6%. They are projected to grow at around 4.6% CAGR in Africa market. And also you can see how they are growing in quarter over quarter in Africa. So this is all about their business in Africa. And then now let's have a look at their manufacturing facilities. So the company owns 8 manufacturing facilities, 4 in Aurangabad, Maharashtra, 1 each in Dahej, Gujarat, Guwahati, Assam, the newly operationalized Pathampur, Madhya Pradesh, and Mauritius. Of these facilities, only 1 in Aurangabad is an API facilities. The rest are all formulations. So Ajanta Pharma now boasts of a strong and resilient infrastructure. So they have 3 greenfield manufacturing facilities in addition to earlier 5 facilities would enable them to meet the growth demand for the next 5 years. All these facilities are state of the art, equipped with most advanced machines capable of complying with the most stringent regulatory requirements. As the utilization levels of the greenfield plants improve, we will see the operation leverage and tax benefit kicking in and their return ratios improving. So as you see, we can see that in the upcoming slides. So how their return ratios was dropping, this is because they plan to enter US market, and also they invested a lot of capex, though they have invested like a huge capex in the previous year. If you look at their capital expenditure, they did around 297 crores in financial 2016, 300 crores in financial 2017, and again 275 crores in financial 2018, and 360 crores in financial 2019, and 240 crores in financial 2020. So they were doing a lot of capex, so their capex cycle just ends. So they just did around almost 1600 crores of capex in the past 5 years. So it is going to meet the demand. So then now the operating leverage kicks in, and once these plants utilization level goes up, their return ratios are going to go up, and their margins are going to do better, and they are going to have a very good profitability, because now they are investing a lot. Their cash flow is also reduced. I will show that in a minute. Then if you look at their R&D spend, so they were doing at around 6% in financial 2016, 6% of their revenue they are doing as R&D spend. So and then financial 2017 it was 8%, and then 9% in financial 2018, and 9% in financial 2019, and in financial 2020 it was around 6%. If you look at quarter over quarter, they were doing it around 8 to 9%, and then now it reduced to around 5 to 6%. Let's have a look at their global presence. Where are they operating? As I said, they are operating in India, they are operating in US, they are operating in 19 countries in Africa, and they are also active in 10 countries in Asia, including India, of course. And then let's have a look at their growth opportunities. So what are their growth drivers? So they have a customized market specific product portfolio. They are leveraging their brand power, some of their key products, and they have many first to market products, and they are filing 10 to 12 ANDAs filing in USA every year. So 22 ANDAs waiting approval from US FDA, and they are present in specialty segments in India, and they just finished their capex cycle. So they have all their investments done, and they are debt free. So it's impressive how they managed debt free, and they just did their capex, and now for the next 5 years they don't need much capex, and we can see their revenues going up quite fast, since their utilization levels, if it goes up, it's a very good thing. Also, if you look at their where they are going to grow, the chart gives how from which markets it's going to grow. So as you see, the Indian markets, it's going to do nice, and also US market they are going to have a very good growth, and their emerging markets it's also going to do pretty well. Then let's have a look at the income statement. So their sales was 350 crores in March 2009, and it increased to almost 2588 crores in March 2020. If you look at their net profit, it increased from 25 crores in March 2009 to almost 468 crores in March 2020. Look at the growth. They are growing pretty nice. So in the last 3-4 years they did not do well, because in March 2018 they almost reached 416 crores, and then March 2017 it's 507 crores, and then it started declining, 469 crores and 387 crores. Now again they are going to pick up their momentum. They are just picking up their momentum. And if you look at their compounded sales growth, they did around 20% for the past 10 years, and they did 30% profit growth for the past 10 years, and the price, of course, it went up 48% CAGR, and the return on equity, it was doing pretty well, 28% in 10 years. Let's have a look at their total income year over year. We just saw, so it increased from 1771 crores in financial 2016 to almost 2680 crores in financial 2020. If you look at their EBITDA, it increased from 587 crores in financial 2016 to almost 683 crores in financial 2020, and then their net profit, it increased from 416 crores to 468 crores in financial 2020. And then if you look at their India and export, so Indian business degrew by 1% quarter over quarter, and then the export business grew by 12%. So overall they grew at around 8%. Let's have a look at their EBITDA margin. So as I said, their EBITDA margin was decreasing. So their EBITDA margin was decreasing from 34% in 2016 to almost 27-26% in financial 2020. This is because they were trying to invest in some of the facilities, and they want to enter into US business, they want to increase the US business, and they were doing a lot of capex, and their utilization level was pretty low. That's why their EBITDA margin was dropping. Now their capex cycle is done. They are going to ramp up their new facilities, and they are going to increase their utilization levels, and then their EBITDA margin will increase. That's pretty straightforward. So I think their EBITDA margin is going to increase from 26%. Already we saw in H1 2021 their EBITDA margin increased to 36%. So it's not going to be sustainable at 36% because this is mainly because they did not do much expenses because of this COVID crisis. They reduced a lot of their expenses. That's why it's 36%. But then I am confident that in the long term they would almost reach 30 to 31%, or maybe even 32%. So that is pretty sustainable. 30% is pretty sustainable. Management also guided at around 30%. And if you look at the net margin, it also reduced from 24% to 18%, and then it again increased to 23%. So their margins are starting to increase. So their margins are starting to increase, and then return ratios are also going to increase because of their end of capex cycle, and their free cash flow is going to increase. And then what will happen? The market will re-rate the stock. Let's have a look at the PAT and PAT margin. So in 2016 their PAT margin was 24% and it reduced to 18% in 2020, and of course it's starting to increase again because their utilization levels are getting increased. Let's have a look at their EPS. It also follows the same. So it was pretty stagnant for the past years, and now it's going to ramp up in the next 3 years. Also, if you look at the dividend, so they were doing the dividend payout of 18% in financial 2016 and 25% in financial 2017, and in 2019 it's 21%, and 2020 it's also 25%. So they are also giving dividend payout, and the dividend per share was around 13 rupees in 2020. Let's go look at their balance sheet. So their total asset increased from 459 crores to 3,293 crores in March 2020. And then if you see their borrowings, it's almost zero. They don't have any debt at all. So that's a very good for the company. So they just finished their capex cycle and they don't have any debt in the book. That's impressive. They have a very strong balance sheet. If you look at the total debt to equity, so as you see, so their debt was marginally increased in 2019 and 2020, but it again went down to zero in H1 2021. So they are a net debt free company. And then if you look at the return ratios, the return of net worth, it decreased from 41% in 2016 to almost 18% in 2019, and then in 2020 it's 19%, and it's getting increased to 23 in H1 2021. So as I said, it's mainly because of their capex cycle and the low utilization ratio. Their return ratios are going down. They are also entering the US business. Now their return ratios are starting to increase. So look, if the return ratios are going to increase and then market is going to re-rate the stock, so that's something to watch out. And then if you look at the ROCE, so it also decreased from 43% to 22%. According to me, it's bottomed out at around 22%, and it again starting to increase to 30%. So I am pretty sure their return ratios are going to improve in the coming years. And then if you look at their ROCE and projections for the future years, so as I said, it's projected to increase. So their ROE is going to projected to increase from 16.6% to 19.8%, and then ROIC is going to also increase from 26% to 34%, and that's a very good thing for the company. And then their book value is also increasing from 135 rupees in 2016 to 334 rupees in H1 2021. That's a very good thing. They are also constantly increasing their book value. So then let's have a look at their cash flow statement. So what is their free cash flow of the company? So in financial 2018 it was just 7 crores, and then in financial year 20 it was almost 166 crores. So it's projected to increase to 512 crores in financial year 2023. So as I said, their capex cycle are almost done. So for the next 4-5 years they don't have to do much capex, and look what, their free cash flow is going to increase. And if the free cash flow is going to increase, lot of people are going to interested in the stock. That's a very good thing for the company. Their free cash flow is going to increase in the upcoming years. Even doing a lot of capex, they still had some free cash flow in the past years. That's also something to be noted of. And then if you have a look at the shareholding pattern, so the promoter holds at around 17.5%, and then the mutual fund holds around 9.9%, and FII they are holding at around 7.7%. And if you look at the historical promoter holding, it's almost the same, from 17.5% to 70.5%. But the one thing I am looking as a negative in this company, the promoter shares are pledged. So the promoter shares are pledged in September 2016. It's almost 11.7% of their promoter shares are pledged, and in March 2020 it's almost 17.3% of their promoter shares are pledged. but it reduced to 16.1% in September 2020, but still 16.1% of the promoter shares are pledged. That's not a very healthy sign, or not a good sign at all. So those of you who don't know what is pledged shares, the promoters pledge some of their money to get loans from the bank, even either for the company or for the personal loans. So if they pledge loans, why is it bad? Because if their share prices drop, the bank can sell them off. So that's a very bad thing. So it's not a very good thing to have a pledge shares. So that's something negative, so we have to be taken into account. And then if you look at their historical mutual fund holding, it increased from 7.5% in September 2018 to almost 9.9% in September 2020. That's a very good sign. Mutual funds are buying. And then if you look at the FIA holding, it reduced from 10.9% to 7.7%. That's not good. FIAs are selling, but I think this is mainly because a lot of FIAs are getting out because of the COVID crisis, and then this also one of the victim of that, I think. So then let's have a look at their mutual fund shareholding changes. So it was almost 8.22 million shares in January 2020, and it increased to 8.5 million shares in October 2020. So most of the mutual funds are either holding or buying a little bit. So then let's have a look at their top shareholders of mutual funds. So the first one is Mirae Asset Emerging Blue Chip. So they hold around 1.3 million shares and 1.74% of their AUM. So their AUM was around 11,928 crores, and they almost increased 12.87% of their shareholding in this month. So they are still buying. The share price increased from 1,000 to 1,500. They are still buying. And then if you look at the Mirae Asset Large Cap Fund, they are also buying 1.3 million shares. They bought it also increased by 2.27%. So, and then UTI Equity, they hold around 1 million shares, and then Invesco, SBI Magnum Global, UTI Nippon India Growth, and then Mirae Asset Mid Cap Fund. So the Mirae Asset has like a emerging blue chip, large cap fund, mid cap fund, and they also SBI Healthcare Opportunities. They also have this fund, Nippon India Small Cap. They are all having these mutual funds have some percentages in this company as well. That's also something good. Look at the directors remuneration. That is something to be checked off as well. So if you look at the directors gross salary, including all the details, so it's almost 1.67 crore. The Madhusudan Agarwal, and then you have Mr. Yogesh Agarwal. They also have around 10.7 crores and then 10.7 crores. So in total, it's around 23.12 crores was the salary for the managing directors. So of the company. So for the other promoters, so the maximum cap is 10% of the net profit of the company. So which is almost 57.8 crores. They are well within the limit. So 23% according to me. If the percentage is less than 5%, that's almost good. So they are only having at around 3 to 4%. So that's a very good thing for the company. And then let's have a look at the valuation. So if you look at the valuation chart, Ajanta Pharma, it was a darling for the last decade. So for the past 10 years, it increased around 60x. So it was doing phenomenally well for the in the past decade, and the share price dropped from 2000 to 1000, and again it already increased from 1000 to 1500 because they don't have a very good past 3-4 years. But now again they are getting to be in increased interest because their capex cycle is over, and they don't have and now they have higher capacities, and they can ramp up and they can increase their revenues, and their margins will going to improve, their return ratios are going to improve. That's very good sign. So if you also look at the, if you want to look at the technical analysis, so it just dropped high. It just pumped from 1000 to 1500, and there is a resistance here at this point, and then it just hit the resistance, and then it's just staying here. If it breaks this one, and the next resistance is 2000. So if it crosses this resistance point, and this is going to shoot up to 2000 for sure. So then that's a little bit of a technical thing if you want to look at that. So I am more of a fundamental guy. I like fundamentals, but also sometimes if you want to know when to enter, sometimes doing technicals is also good thing. So and also if you look at their PE ratio, so it increased from almost from 5 to it shoot up to 40 PE at some point of time, and then it dropped back to around 15 20, and now currently it sits around 24 to 25 PE. And if you look at the PB also, it increased from 2 to almost 12, and currently it sits around 4.2. That's a very good thing. So we had a very nice pullback, and now it's very good. It's a very good stock to get involved. And then let's have a look at our projections and what are our price targets. So the revenue increased from 1,749 crores in financial 2016 to almost 2,588 crores in financial 2020. So I am projecting it to increase 8% to 2,795 crores in financial 2021 and to 3,075 crores to financial 2022 and 3,536 crores to financial 2023, with a price increase of 10% for 2022, 15% for 2023. And in net profit, so it already increased from 416 crores from financial 2016 to almost 468 crores in financial 2020. Not a big growth. So see, their revenues are growing, but then their net profit is not that much growing because of their dropping in the margin. If the margin comes back again, what happens? Their net profit explodes. So my personal projection is 552 crores of net profit for financial year 2021 and 641 crores net profit for financial 2022 and 750 crores net profit for financial 2023, and the net profit growth of 18% for financial 2021, 16% for financial 2022 and 17% for financial 2023. So if you do my price target with the current valuation, which is 24, so for 1 year it's 1,518 rupees, which is 1% degrowth, and for 2 years it's 1,761 rupees with 15% price cumulative growth, and 2,060 rupees for 3 years with a price cumulative growth of 35%. But then 24, with the increasing financial, they have a net debt free company and they have very good management. They are doing pretty well and their margins are increasing, their profitability is increasing, their return ratios is going to increase, and their capex cycle, they are almost at the near end. So it's looking very bright. Their US business is growing very good. And yeah, only thing, the negative I see is the pledge shares of the promoters. If the pledge share of the promoters is reduced, that's already a very good thing. The board has also approved 1.4 billion rupees share buyback, so they are going to buy back shares. That's also at around 1,850 rupees, if I am not wrong. So that's a very good thing. So it's all doing very good. So I am estimating the price target with P of 28 because I am sure it's going to re-rate and it can even cross 28 and it can reach 30-35, because also the pharma market is booming. A lot of pharma stocks is skyrocketing like anything. So this is a very good company. So I am estimating the price with the P of 28. So for 1 year it's 1,771 rupees, for 2 year it's 2,055 rupees, for 3 years with 2,404 rupees, with the price cumulative growth of 16% for 1 year, 34% for 2 year and 57% for 3 years. So according to me, it's a very good mid-cap company, and it's also in pharma space, and it's a very nice period to be in the pharma stock. So according to me, it's a very nice company to buy at this point of time. If you have a longer time horizon, it's a very good company. And this is my personal opinion and not a recommendation, because I'm not a financial advisor. So this is my personal opinion. So you have to do your due diligence before buying in any stock. So that's all for today. If you like this video, like, share and comment, and please subscribe to my YouTube channel and click the little bell icon as well. So that's it for today. Thank you for watching and have a nice day. Bye bye.